The Truther Girls. The Truther Girls.
Hi everyone. When something like what happened in Japan happens, a massive disaster, a lot of people kind of right away start thinking like maybe it was done on purpose, it was a conspiracy. But you don't really know right away. But what happens then is the truth starts to come out slowly and in pieces, and you start to get the picture. Now, independent scientist Leuren Moret also says that the Japanese accident was tectonic nuclear warfare. Leuren Moret has been on the case of the lack of safety of the Japanese nuclear reactors for a long time. In 2004, an article she wrote was published in the Japan Times that exposed the fact that a lot of the plants were constructed in seismically dangerous areas. Also in 2004, she predicted it is not a question of whether or not a nuclear disaster will occur in Japan, it is a question of when it will occur. And now she's saying that the recent disaster at Fukushima was triggered by HARP plus aerosol/chemtrail plasma weapon, and also that the Stuxnet virus played a part in this. She says the use of the Stuxnet virus in the Fukushima plant caused the malfunction of the cooling pumps and valves, thereby creating the dangerous radiation releases. You might remember the Stuxnet worm from last year. It's a computer virus that targets Siemens systems. You have to put it into the computer through a USB drive, so it's not like just something you get over the internet. And it seemed that it was designed to target the nuclear plants in Iran, although it did spread all over the place, but 60% of the infected computers were in Iran. And it must have been some crazy, dangerous hacker who did this, right? Like maybe those people that, will go on to eventually work for WikiLeaks or something. But then it turned out US and Israel were behind Stuxnet, claims researcher. At a TED conference in California, Ralph Langner said that the Stuxnet virus was made to cripple the Iranian nuclear reactors by damaging the centrifuges. And here's what he says, quote, "My opinion is that Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, is involved." And plus, he's not the only one who says it was the Mossad. Pravda says Israeli general boasts authoring Stuxnet virus. A general in the army of that country, Gabi Ashkenazi, has confirmed the authorship of the Stuxnet worm. So they even the Israelis admit that they did it. But you notice the headline of this article is US and Israel were behind Stuxnet. So it was the US and Israel that created the Stuxnet virus, and that's kind of old news, but it's still relevant because the Stuxnet cyber weapon escaped and moved to China. Maybe it didn't really escape. Maybe it was, spread intentionally. And it not only got into China, but also, according to Leuren Moret, it was also found in Japan. And according to this article, it targets Siemens controller systems. And the Fukushima plant apparently runs on Siemens software. So, is it such a stretch? Because, they had the earthquake and the tsunami, but they had all those fail-safes in there. And it didn't really make sense. Why are all these reactors, failing one after the other? There had to be more to it than that. Well, if you factor in this internet worm, or this Windows operating system worm, the Stuxnet, which was made by the US and the Mossad, or Israel, if you factor that in, that would maybe kind of explain why the plant has malfunctioned so badly. And that would mean that maybe they had advanced knowledge. Maybe it's a conspiracy. Unfortunately, the word conspiracy has been totally subverted. Conspiracy is when two or more people get together and conspire to do something. Like you can have a conspiracy to commit murder or a conspiracy to commit whatever. Conspiracy, that's all it means. It's like you get together behind somebody's back and then you do something to them. But it's been subverted so that people use the word conspiracy as in like a hoax or a theory that's not true or some kind of paranoia, but it's nothing to do with that. Leuren Moret says that tectonic weapon could have been used. So does Benjamin Fulford, so do a lot of people. There's a lot of evidence that a tectonic weapon certainly could have been used. Two, we know that Israel and the US worked together to create the Stuxnet virus, which affects nuclear plants nuclear reactors. It sends their centrifuges spinning out of control or something like that, damages them. They created that, and it affects plants that are using Siemens software, which is what the Fukushima plant is using, and the Stuxnet virus was found in Japan. So could they have triggered it with a tectonic weapon and also sabotaged the plant with a virus? Sure, they could have. And I might remind you that the Illuminati card game, which was created by Stephen Jackson in 1990 and published in 1995, had a card called Combined Disaster that showed the Wacko Tower in Tokyo being toppled. Combined disasters, I mean, need I say more? You think it's a coincidence? And also look at the aftermath. See this article, those with nothing are coping best? What this article points out is that the areas that were the most seriously affected are coping well in terms of managing with the, handling the catastrophe, remaining calm and orderly and all that kind of thing. But that the areas that were not directly affected by the radiation or the tsunami or the earthquake are coping very badly, that store shelves are empty, and that food and gas transport has been interrupted. The author says it's because the Japanese are brought up to be disciplined and follow orders, and that because of this they lack initiative, but I don't buy it. Why is the transportation of gas and food being interrupted, causing obviously gas and food shortages? Because nobody knew what initiative to take? No, I think somebody took the initiative to interrupt the transport. That would be the government. Because there's a reason why they would do these things. I mean, the powers that be, right? Why would they do this attack on Japan? I don't know exactly. I'm sure in their grand chessboard they have a reason for it, to destroy the country, destroy the economy. I don't really know exactly. I figure maybe Japan wasn't quite on board with the New World Order. Kind of like the way they did that hit on the Polish government after that whole swine flu thing where they refused to, give the public the vaccine, and then they all died mysteriously in a plane crash. Maybe Japan wasn't on board, and so they did a kind of hit on them. But look at what's happening in the aftermath. As Prison Planet reports, Chernobyl-style yellow rain causes panic in Japan. And there's a video here of what people are finding on the cars. This yellow residue left after the rain. The people are panicking. They're thinking, well, this is some kind of, radioactive residue from the fallout. You know where this was seen before, as they point out on Prison Planet? And at Chernobyl. They had this yellow rain come down. And you know what the government told the people? They told them it was pollen. So the kids were apparently, splashing around in the puddles of the yellow rain. It was just pollen. But it wasn't pollen. And their hair started falling out and they all got cancer. And you know what they're telling them that the yellow rain is now in Japan? You guessed it. Pollen. So obviously they're maybe trying to prevent panic, but they're also really not trying to minimize the damage. They're telling people that everything is okay when clearly it's not. So it's a bit like after 9/11 when the EPA said that the air at ground zero was safe to breathe. Why do they do these things? How could I look at all this evidence and then think that it was just a coincidence? All this evidence for tectonic weapons, Stuxnet virus is more than likely involved. The government's dragging their feet afterwards and doing things like, interrupting transportation of gas and food to places that aren't even affected, and telling people don't worry about the yellow rain. And meanwhile in the States they're telling people don't worry about the radiation. Now, how can I think that this is, it's just a coincidence? Go back to sleep. I can't go back to sleep. And you know what? FEMA must have some kind of a crystal ball, because on September 10th, 2001, they predicted 3 disasters. One was a terrorist attack on New York City, and that was the day before 9/11, obviously. Second was a hurricane in New Orleans, and the third was an earthquake in San Francisco. Why am I telling you this? I'm not telling you this to freak you out. I don't know, I feel like I have to tell you. I have to share this information to wake people up. Wake people up that, everything is a lie, they're being lied to, government's not looking out for you. And, get out of your comfort zone, because this concerns us all. So, well, thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.